Then one question I think many viewers will be curious about is that it's so encouraging to hear that actually now there's a large space for small players to join and to create something new. Therefore, Uber, Lyft, and many platform giants may be paper tigers, but nevertheless, they look like a very fierce and rather, they're growing very fast kind of paper tigers. So what is their strategic advantage that they are having at this moment? Like, yeah, again said, like Didi Chuxing, all this Grab in Southeast Asia. If all the technology are available, why are they so powerful now?
That's a fantastic question. I think that what these network companies have is, or what these platform companies have is users, a network. They have the people, and without the people, they would be worth basically nothing. What's fascinating about that from a social movement perspective is that what social movements specialize in is getting people. And so here's the question. The Silicon Valley kind of vision for the world, and I don't even know if it's actually fair to just call it Silicon Valley, because this is global, right? There's Grab, Didi Chuxing. I don't know, what is the Chinese equivalent of Silicon Valley?
There's no single one place, yeah, but yeah, it is very dispersed.
It's interesting, and it'd be interesting to think there's probably different. I think what I'm trying to articulate is that the Silicon Valley capitalists and techpreneurs are cultural innovators. They are hacking, they are engineering or re-engineering our way of life. And
Yes.
they're doing it in order to route more dollars into the bank accounts of their investors. That is fundamentally their interest. And usually through the promise of some type of convenience, or you could say, which usually means the commodification of something that may not have been commodified before. You can put your empty rooms on the market. You can put the empty seats in your car on the market. I mean, I think there was this idea of the sharing economy early on. Maybe that's kind of passe now. But in any case, if what they're doing is getting people to buy into their idea of how we should live, what's to stop us? What's to stop workers? What's to stop people who are not capitalists in terms of being oriented towards only to heaping up more and more capital? What's to stop us from innovating and experimenting with new ways of technologically enabled ways of life? And so I think with Co-op Ride, with the app, something that we have just begun to explore. I mean, I can pull it up here, and you can download it, by the way, on the App Store.
Yeah.
It looks just like Uber and Lyft, more or less, right? And that's our starting point, which means people will interact with it in the same way they interact with Uber and Lyft. But what's been fascinating to me in these first couple weeks of operation is that it's actually creating new social relationships. We talk a lot in the co-op about how the idea is to make an economic intervention, but it's also a cultural intervention. Because at this point right now, there's this group of thousands of drivers who are very animated about the concept of worker ownership, who are now through the platform meeting tens of thousands of riders who are also very excited about that idea. And riders are requesting trips using the app from drivers who both are coming together on this new platform around a shared commitment to this new type of economic experimentation of, what if we gave ownership to, the workers? And so we've been hearing on Twitter, people have been kind of sharing the conversations that are happening between drivers and riders in the platform. And it makes me think that this is a particularly rich, a fertile area for something new to grow. Because ultimately, our society is the product of millions, billions, trillions of interactions between individuals. So we're starting to think about ways, how do we, as the platform amplify that, to create maybe a new culture of solidarity, where it's no longer that your driver is just some guy who, drives a car and the app gives you sort of frictionless economic transaction. You don't even talk to each other. That's the end of it. Are there ways that we can bring together drivers and riders a new sense of solidarity? Also, it's also bridging interesting class and racial divides. It's a almost entirely immigrant workforce, almost entirely workers of color. The riders and people who use Uber and Lyft in New York City, this is not universally true, but it tends to be people who have enough disposable income to not rely solely on public transportation. And so it's it's another social process that's happening that we're sort of thinking through.
Yeah. No, that is great. I'm so happy to hear all that. As you said, there are lots of Marxist idea in your movement, and also a lot of Adam Smith as well. Thinking the micro mechanisms of transaction, but certainly there's a lot of Gramsci. You have the changes as idea, right? It's not only war of a movement, but also war of a position and rethinking yourself and lifestyle, but also lots of planning as well. Platform economy, a trick of platform economy, as I understand it, is to translate lots of social relations into economic transaction, as you put it. And how do they do that? They basically isolate a certain, which normally will be social interaction, almost unconscious, organic, and natural social interaction. They isolate it and package it and put a contract there, right? Contractualize that. And then, of course, it is turned into a commercial transaction. I mean, on the surface, the GDP grows. Of course, if you pay $1 for every hello you say to people, I mean, the national
the GDP would skyrocket.
Immediately, yeah. But then what you are doing is to, as also you mentioned earlier, is a kind of probably the counter movement. So you translate the commercialized transaction back into social interaction. So I think that's very encouraging to hear, and also it's so real. I mean, it is something doable, as your experiment shows. Yeah.